Hey guys, welcome back for my second pregnancy update video. So this video might only be on week 5 depending on how long it takes me to get through it because a lot of shit happened. So yeah, let's just jump into it because there's a lot to talk about. And sorry if I'm looking down all the time, it's because I'm looking at my book. Okay. So the day that I filmed the first video, I was 5 weeks exactly. So the next day, I woke up for work at 5:15 and I had spotting. And automatically, because I mentioned in the last video that I had a miscarriage, a really early one back in January, and that's how it started. I had brown spotting. I immediately thought that I was going to miscarry again. Honestly, it's hard not to go there. I came back into the room and Var was sleeping peacefully in bed, and I stood there debating, should I tell him or should I just go to work? Like, what should I do? And then he stirred and turned over, and I fell on the bed and started crying, and I told him that I started spotting, and he was like, we'll call into work and we'll go straight to the hospital. And me being me, being stupid, I debated going to the hospital or just going to work. Because I hate calling in sick. I hate it. Because I knew even if I was miscarrying, they're not going to do anything for you at the hospital. But that's still no reason not to go. So eventually I did call in work. I did call in sick. And we went to the hospital. We were there maybe 3 hours. And by the way, it was just brown spotting. There was no clots or anything like that. And I don't think I had any cramping. I was just panicking, I guess. So we went to the hospital. They took a urine sample and they took blood work. And I think we were there for a total of 3 hours, which isn't too bad. And the doctor came in and told me that my HCG or HGC? HCG. So the doctor came in and told me that my HCG levels were at 5.35. And I said, to me that sounded low. Because I thought it needed to be I don't know. I thought the last time I went, he told me it needed to be over an 8 to be pregnant. So I was thinking, that sounds really low. But he was like, no, it's hard to say. He's like, it's in the normal range, but we won't know anything until you come back for your second blood work, which I had a doctor's appointment for, I think it was Tuesday. My first doctor's appointment where they would have sent me for blood work to confirm that I'm pregnant. So he told me to wait and go to that appointment and get my second blood work and see if my levels have risen or have fallen. So I left the hospital feeling like I kind of did before. I still didn't really know anything, and I couldn't get that number 5.35 out of my head. That sounds super low. So I went home and I started asking the girls on that Ovia app or whatever that I have, and they said, well, it does sound low. Honestly, we have a love-hate relationship with that app because I find that a lot of people can say a lot of negative things that, oh, it sounds like you're going to have a miscarriage, but really everything's fine. And then that could just add more stress to you, which is terrible. I was Googling, the lowest, what the normal ranges were. And in order for you to even get a positive on a pregnancy test, it has to be, I think it's 20 or 25. So I did go buy a pregnancy test and I took it. And I know that even if you were miscarrying, it takes a while for your levels to go back down. But I was still getting that instant positive. And so that kind of eased my mind a little bit. And I knew that in order to get a positive, it has to be higher than whatever it is, 20 or 25. So I knew that it wasn't 5.35. He must have meant 535 or 5,000. So that day, I got home. I got home and I was so tired. I pretty much napped the whole day. I'm not even kidding. I slept the day away. I had zero appetite. I wasn't hungry at all. And at the end of the day, when I finally got up, Barb was starting to get annoyed with me because I wasn't eating anything. I think I had a bagel on the way home from the hospital all day. That's all I had to eat all day. So I made it myself a smoothie and I drank that and I went to bed. So the next day I got up for work again. So that whole first day I still spotted all day, but there was no clotting. Let me read what I wrote. Yeah. So I took a nap. I was still like super bloated and gassy, no appetite. Obviously I was very emotional, stressed, upset. Yeah, so that was that day. So the next day was actually our first anniversary, July 23rd. So I woke up for work and I was still spotting. So I decided to stay home again because I know, last time I spotted that first day and then the second day was when I miscarried. But even though it's completely different, the first time I spotted the first day, but I only spotted for that morning and it had clots in it, and then the next day I started spotting for like an hour, I think around 10, and then by 11 I was full on bleeding. This time I spotted all day and I had, I think, mild cramping. It kind of came and went. And then the next day I woke up for work again and I was still spotting, but I wanted to stay home because I knew, well, I thought that if I was going to miscarry, I would have miscarried this day. So I stayed home from work again. And let's see, I'm gonna go back to my book. So I woke up feeling pretty normal. I don't really, feeling like any other day, I guess. I spotted all day, very little, no clotting. I had frequent urination apparently this day. My boobs are still sore. Very little to no cramping and backaches. I used to get bad headaches a lot every day, and the only thing that would fix my headache was a nap. Again, I had no appetite and no energy. So yeah, that was that day. Nothing really happened. I spotted all day. That was pretty much it. So I decided, well, okay, tomorrow, if I'm still spotting, I'm just gonna go to work because like nothing's really happening, and I know spotting is normal in the first trimester. So the next day I got up for work. I was still spotting. I was cramping on and off all day, and I got a really bad headache after lunch. So 3:30 I was on my break and I went to the washroom, and when I looked, there was a bit of blood in the toilet. Like, I know it's hard to tell how much blood is in the like when it's in the toilet, if it's a lot or if it's a little. It didn't seem like it was very much, but it was still blood, like red blood. And again, I immediately panicked. I don't want to say it wasn't like a full-blown panic attack, but you just start to get very overwhelmed. And again, I thought, okay, this is it. I'm gonna miscarry. So I was in the washroom like debating. I really didn't want to call my supervisor to go home sick again because I already called in sick the first 2 days, and I never called in sick before, like at this job, ever. So I hated it. So I really didn't want to call, so I decided to stick it out because it was 3:30 and I was done at 7:30, so it was only a few hours. So I went back to the washroom around 4 and nothing happened. There was no more bleeding, no more spotting, and I wasn't cramping, which I know usually it comes with really bad cramps. So nothing was happening, but I was still like pretty upset, and I just wanted to go home. So I went back to the lunchroom and my supervisor was actually there. But I still didn't want to ask to go home. So I was sat down and he was sat to my table talking to the girl next to me, and eventually he looked at me and he was like, "Are you okay?" And actually he wasn't a supervisor, he was like the manager. And I looked at him and I tried so hard to keep it together. But I felt my eyes tearing up and I just pointed to the office and asked him to come in with me. So when we got in there, I seriously bawled my eyes out. I cried. I hate crying, guys. I hate it. And I told him I need to go home. And he said, yeah, no problem. We'll bring you to your vehicle. Not a worry. And then he just like asked, like, is everything okay? Do you want to talk about anything? And I was like, yeah, it's just very personal. And I remember him asking if I knew about their website. I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically like their helpline. And he said it's for addictions and like relationship problems and stuff like that. And I was just like, addictions. But anyway, so I managed to like stop crying a little bit and enough to go back out in the lunchroom and grab my bag, which I knew everyone could tell that I was crying, which I hated even more. But I grabbed my stuff and they brought me to my car, and it was about an hour drive from my work to my house. So that whole drive I seriously bawled, cried my eyes out, thought for sure that this is it. I got home and there was still like no bleeding, it was just spotting. Not much cramping, but I still had a headache. So I took a bath, then I took like a 45-minute nap, and I woke up to go get Byron from the bus stop. And then I know my like sinuses were super clogged when I woke, which I find like comes and goes all the time. No appetite, and I was super tired. Okay, so yeah, that was that day. So again, nothing happened, just spotting. Just went back to spotting. Only that little bit of blood in the toilet around 3:30 or whatever, and then it went back to spotting. So the next day would have been 5 weeks, 4 days. So I woke when Byron woke for work. No cramping, no spotting. So this was the day of my doctor's appointment. She told me that my HCG levels was at 535, which was good. So I thought I was finally going to get some answers at this doctor's appointment, but I should have known. She sent me for blood work, but I had to wait 2 days for my results. So I debated going to the hospital because I knew if I went to the hospital they would have gave me like my second HCG number that day. However, I knew I was going to have to wait for hours at the hospital because this was already like I think around 10 o'clock. So I knew that if I went to the hospital I would have been there all day and I wouldn't have slept and I wouldn't have been able to go in on my night shift, which I didn't want to call in sick again. But I also didn't want to wait 2 days for results, so I did end up going just for my doctor's appointment, blood work at my doctor's, and waiting. I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty stressed out about that too. So I went and had my blood work done, and the guy who took it told me, he's like, yeah, you should get the results by the end of the day. And I'm like, awesome, like that's great. So I went back to my doctor. And I told her like, oh, like he told me it should be back by the end of the day. And she's like, I highly doubt it. And I was like, well, can I just call in the morning and see if you get it and then come in tomorrow? She's like, well, I don't have any appointments for tomorrow, but just give me a call. And I'm like, okay, perfect. So I went home. I didn't sleep very good that day. Yeah, so I went home, slept for a couple hours for night shift. I spotted a little that day. At the doctor's appointment, she didn't really tell me anything, really, only that nothing sounded alarming that I was miscarrying. So that kind of put an ease on me. Not really. So the day after my doctor's appointment, so yeah, I went to work that night, and first thing when I got off in the morning, I called my doctor's office and asked about the results. She said, yeah, we got it, but she's like, I can only get you in at 1:30 p.m. And that wasn't going to work for me because I get home around 9 a.m. from night shift, and I sleep all day, so I couldn't really, I could have, I guess, but it really would have messed up my sleeping for night shift, and I would have been super tired. So I had to wait a whole another day to get my results, and just knowing that it's down there waiting for me just, you know, made time go that much slower. So then I went to work that night, and then the next day I got off work and I drove straight to my doctor's office, and my HCG from my second blood work was 1,752, which was awesome because it doubled or tripled, almost tripled, and I was supposed to go for another round of blood work to make sure that it's still rising, but he just gave me the full deal, the full blood work that they send you for to check everything, and he gave me the paper to book my first ultrasound, which is awesome. And I didn't know my blood type at the time, and he said like maybe that has something to do with why I'm spotting. I think maybe that might be wrong. So I went and got the blood work done right away because I wanted to know what my blood type was, and luckily that didn't take a lot of time, and I booked my appointment for my first ultrasound. So yeah, I went home, went to bed, slept good, still spotting with some crampings and backaches. So I was feeling pretty happy that day, knowing that my levels had almost tripled, which was great news. I spotted that whole week, and it took me almost a whole week to know what was happening. Like, was I miscarrying? Was it just normal? It was a very stressful week for me and Barn, because obviously he's worried about it too. But everything is fine, which is awesome. So that was the end of week 5.